gonna be making this cotton sheep. That's a good question. So this is our sheep. So make sure you guys have your supplies. This is what he will look like when he's finished. Everyone see him? I named mine Fred. This is Fred the sheep, my fluffy sheep friend Fred. It's a tongue twister. Sheep. So cotton sheep, we're gonna be using cotton balls. So make sure you have your cotton balls ready. You're also gonna need a white piece of paper to make the sheep's body. I have a black piece of paper for the sheep's head. I have 2 clothespins for his feet, or you can just cut your sheep's feet out of construction paper. I have a sponge that I'm going to be using to dye my sheep's wool with some water and food coloring. Or you can use markers, you can use paints, you can use whatever you'd like. And then I also have 2 googly eyes in here. You won't be able to see very well, but these are my 2 googly eyes so that I can put them on my sheep at the end. So to start, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about how they would use wool in the 1800s. So sheep did not come to Canada until 1664, and even then it wasn't called Canada. They were mainly found in Ontario and Alberta, but the British settlers were the ones that brought the sheep to Canada, and they used them for their wool so that they could make warm clothing to survive the harsh winters in Canada. So tongue twister. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how they would have made wool, and then I'll show you how we're going to use wool. So this is sheep's wool, if you guys can see that. So this is real sheep wool. And carding is something you would do to get out all the knots to make sure your wool is nice and smooth before you're going to use it. So it's a little hard to do since it's very rough and you're pulling the wool so that it's nice and smooth. Like it's like a hairbrush but for the sheep wool, and you have 2. So can they see it in the camera? I can come a little closer and I can start spinning it to make some thread, and then I can make my clothing. But lucky for us today, we don't have to go through all of that work. We're just gonna be using cotton balls. So to start, you guys should have a template or you have your white construction paper, and we're just gonna cut out a cloud shape. So it will look like this, kind of like a cloud. Cut out your body, and we're gonna move on to the head. So the head of the sheep, you should have a template or you can freehand it on your own. We're just gonna be doing, I'm gonna freehand mine, I think. So I'm cutting out my sheep's head out of black construction paper. So I'm almost done cutting out my sheep's head. Alright. So now that I have my sheep's head and my sheep's body, I'm good to start adding his cotton. So we're going to make him really, really fluffy. So is everyone ready to start adding cotton? Sheep. So we have our sheep's body, and we're going to add some glue to his body. I'm going to use the back of my popsicle stick. I'm going to spread it so that I can add my cotton balls. So I'm just spreading the glue onto my sheep's body, and then I'm going to stick cotton balls just like that. See? So I'm going to fill his whole body with glue so that I can add some cotton balls. 1 cotton ball, 2. I want them really fluffy, so I'm going to make sure I'm going to add a lot of cotton. Super fluffy. So once we have all the cotton on, I will let you guys know what your next step will be. And it includes, spoiler alert, we're going to be dyeing the cotton just like how you would have dyed clothing back in the day in the 1800s. Settlers would have also had fun colors like me, so we can do red on our sheep, kind of like my dress, because that would have been how you would have dyed fabric. Or cotton wool. It wouldn't have been boring white. I'm using a sponge and some food dyes. Pretty easy. All you have to do is put a little water, add a drop or 2 of food dye, and I'm using the corner of my sponge to sponge on the cotton so I can be really exact and get the dye exactly where I want it. think I'm gonna try to do some green polka dots on this sheep, but it might end up as tie-dye. But it doesn't matter, his wool can be any color you want. So I'm just dabbing my sheep. And this is how we're gonna be coloring him. We're gonna do green and blue. I have red and yellow. I can also mix my blue and my red if I want to make purple dye, or yellow and red to make orange. Sorry, let's see how I'm making. Alright, has anyone seen a sheep before in real life? You'll notice the wool is definitely not as soft as this sheep, but that's why it's our fluffy sheep friend. Wool is a bit more coarse. So this is my finished product. My sheep's body is nice and tie-dyed. Alright, next we're going to be adding his head. So you're going to take your glue again, and I already cut out his head, and I'm going to take my glue stick, and I'm going to put some glue on a cotton ball where I want his head to be, and I'm going to stick his head on. So I'm just gluing where I want his head to be. Ta-da! There's my sheep's head. Next, he's going to need some googly eyes. So I'm once again going to take my glue and glue some eyes on him. My sheep some legs so he can stand up like our friend Fred here. So I'm just going to take my clothespin and put it on the bottom. Just clip it. It might take some readjusting since he doesn't always stand up the first try. You have to kind of try different spots for where to put the clothespins. Did I get it first try? Oh no, I'm gonna have to move it over a bit. So yeah, just keep readjusting, seeing where you want it to see if he stands up. It will also be a little bit easier for him to stand up once he's dried. Next week, we have our paper quilts, which we're gonna be making story quilts out of. Then the next week we have Dragonfly Mobile, which is a lot of fun. And then we have Mammoth, which is very cool because when you lift him up, it looks like he has underwear on underneath. It's really funny. And then we're making Scarecrow spinners. So I hope to see you guys at another Kids in the Village craft, and you can learn a bit more about settlers and the Pickering Museum, and we'll have some more demonstrations such as carding or some surprise ones when we do our Scarecrow spinners, and I hope to see you guys there. Thanks so much for coming.